Some of you are being drained, delayed, and disrespected, not because of your enemies, but because you're too friendly with the wrong people. God didn't call you to be liked. He called you to be focused. Being too available is costing you your assignment. Being friendly is not a weakness, but being too friendly can be. When you confuse access with purpose, you invite distraction into your destiny. This video will challenge you to guard your greatness, set divine boundaries, and stop negotiating your worth in the name of being liked. It's time to wake up. Being too friendly blinds you to manipulators because your heart is wide open while their intentions are completely hidden. They smile in your face, they compliment your strengths, they clap for your wins, but beneath the surface, they're keeping score. They're studying you. They know you're generous. They know you hate conflict. They know you'd rather carry the burden than confront the betrayal. And so they use your goodness as a weakness. They wear the mask of friendship, but deep down, they are merchants of manipulation. People who don't love you, they love your access. They don't value who you are, they value what you give. And if you're not careful, your kindness will become the open door to your own destruction. When you're too eager to please, you override your own discernment. You ignore the unease. You excuse the disrespect. You justify the inconsistency. You see red flags, but you convince yourself they're just people having a bad day. You keep investing into people who only withdraw from you. That is not love, that is self-abandonment. And the enemy loves it when you're afraid to say no. Because manipulators thrive in the lives of people who can't set boundaries. They interpret your silence as permission. They mistake your kindness for weakness. And before you know it, you're exhausted, confused, and wondering how the people you helped are the same ones hurting you the most. Stop offering loyalty to people who see you as a tool and not a treasure. You are not called to be everybody's emotional trash can. You are not a convenience store for people to use when they're empty. There are people who only show up when they need something, but are nowhere to be found when you need support. That is not a relationship, that's a transaction. And God is calling you to rise above it. He's calling you to protect your spirit, to guard your heart, to love yourself enough to stop apologizing for refusing to be used. Jesus had compassion, but he also had discernment. He loved the world, but he didn't trust everyone. The Bible says he knew what was in the hearts of men. He didn't give everyone access. He had an inner circle. He didn't chase validation. He didn't beg Judas to stay. He washed his feet, honored the moment, and let him walk. That is wisdom. And that is the posture you must adopt. There's a difference between being kind and being compromised. One blesses others while honoring yourself. The other slowly erodes your value for the sake of acceptance. Don't lose yourself trying to keep everyone else comfortable. Not everyone deserves access to your heart, your energy, or your vision. Sometimes loving people means loving them from a distance. It's not bitterness, it's boundaries. It's not hate, it's healing. And it's not pride, it's protection. Stop being too friendly, because manipulators will only stop when you finally start. Start choosing you. Start honoring your discernment. Start listening to the Spirit of God that whispers, this one doesn't belong close. The Bible says, guard your heart, for out of it flows the issues of life. That is not just poetic wisdom, it's a divine instruction. Your heart is not just a place of emotion, it is the command center of your decisions, your intentions, your values, and your vision. When God tells you to guard it, He's not being overly cautious. He's being strategic. The enemy knows that if he can't destroy you, he will distract you. And the most effective distractions often come disguised as friendships, support, and even opportunities. But when you lack boundaries, you leave the gate to your soul wide open, allowing anyone and anything to trample through sacred ground. Boundaries are not barriers to love. They are bridges to clarity. They don't separate you from people in hatred. They separate you from confusion. It's not about isolating yourself. It's about insulating your purpose. Too many people are suffering not because they're under attack, but because they refuse to establish order. You cannot live a life of peace when your relationships are chaotic. Some of you are losing sleep, losing focus, and losing momentum, not because of the devil, but because you're too accessible. You have allowed emotional squatters to settle in your mind, people who have no intention of building with you, only draining you. Being available to everyone is not ministry, it's mismanagement. Even Jesus, who embodied perfect love, withdrew from the crowds. He didn't heal everyone in every city. He didn't let every disciple see his deepest moments. He chose who had access, when they had access, and how much access they had. That wasn't arrogance, that was alignment. And if the Son of God had boundaries, who are you to live without them? Stop thinking that saying no makes you mean. Stop believing that walking away makes you heartless. You are not responsible for how people react to your growth. You are only responsible for being obedient to the calling on your life. If your circle doesn't respect your boundaries, it's not a circle, it's a cage. A circle is meant to empower you, uplift you, and hold you accountable to your highest self. A cage is filled with people who demand access, drain your joy, and question your worth every time you speak up. God is not calling you to be imprisoned by familiarity. He's calling you to be free through wisdom. Some of the people closest to you are the very ones keeping you from stepping into the next season of your life because you're too afraid to set the line. But until you draw the line, you will keep being crossed, disrespected. You were not created to be everyone's support system at the cost of your own sanity. You are not required to explain your boundaries to people who benefited from your lack of them. This is the season to grow, and growth demands structure. It demands standards. It demands spiritual discipline. So love with wisdom, serve with limits, and guard your heart not with guilt, but with grace. Purpose requires selective association. That means you don't get to carry everyone into every season. You must understand that every great assignment comes with a necessary separation. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into the next level. Abraham had to leave his country, his relatives, and even his father's household in order to step into the promise God had prepared. That wasn't just a relocation, it was a revelation. Some blessings don't come until you learn to leave. Some clarity doesn't arrive until you create distance. And some doors won't open until you close others. It's not personal, it's purposeful. Jesus, the greatest leader who ever lived, intentionally pulled away from the crowds. He was never addicted to attention. He wasn't driven by popularity. He knew the crowd could cheer for him one day and crucify him the next. So he chose solitude when the mission required stillness. If Jesus had to step away to stay aligned with the Father, what makes you think you can remain surrounded and still stay sharp? Sometimes noise disguises itself as support. Sometimes the people applauding you are also the ones draining you. When you're too friendly, too accessible, too available, you blur the lines between association and assignment. You allow people who were only meant to walk a mile with you to sit down in your destiny as if they earned a permanent place. And when you do that, you dilute your discernment. Purpose is not a community project, it's a personal covenant. And with every covenant comes a call to consecration. That means being set apart, not arrogant, not isolated, but intentional. You must be willing to disappoint people to obey God. You must be willing to be misunderstood to be rightly aligned. Because if you say yes to every invitation, you miss your divine appointment. The more weight your calling carries, the more careful you must be with your connections. You can't build purpose with people who don't respect your process. You can't share vision with people who only see your past. And you can't move forward if you're anchored to those who are comfortable in yesterday. Being too friendly opens the door for confusion. You start seeking counsel from those who have no revelation. You start exposing your dreams to people who have no faith. And instead of walking in confidence, you walk in compromise, constantly second guessing what you know God told you, all because someone in your circle didn't validate it. Hear me clearly. You don't need agreement from the crowd when you've received instruction from the throne. Your calling is not up for negotiation. If you're always available to everyone, you'll become effective to no one. You'll be busy but not fruitful, connected but not aligned, surrounded but still alone. Let God prune your circle so He can perfect your purpose. Every level of destiny demands a higher level of discernment. Choose wisely. Your future depends on it. Pleasing people can make you miss God, and that's not just a warning. It's a reality too many are already living. Some of you are more committed to being liked than being led. More committed to staying in the comfort of approval than walking in the calling of obedience. You're so wrapped up in not disappointing others that you're constantly disappointing yourself, and worse, disobeying God. You want everyone to think well of you, but what does heaven say? Whose name are you really trying to protect? Yours or His? You say yes so often to people that your spirit is buried under the weight of misplaced loyalty. You attend events you weren't supposed to be at, entertain conversations you were supposed to ignore, stay in relationships God already told you to release, all because you're afraid of being misunderstood, rejected, or disliked. But let me ask you, what is the cost of compromise? There comes a point where the applause of man becomes the very prison that chains your purpose. When you need their claps, their compliments, their confirmation, you've made them your God. And the problem with living for their approval is you will die by their rejection. You're not called to be everyone's favorite. You're called to be faithful. And faithfulness sometimes looks like standing alone, misunderstood, misquoted, and mislabeled, but still unmoved, because your stability isn't rooted in public opinion. It's grounded in divine instruction. God didn't anoint you to be popular. He anointed you to be powerful. And real power comes with the courage to say no without guilt, to stand your ground without fear, and to obey God even when it costs you the company of people. Let them walk, let them talk, let them misunderstand. It's better to walk alone with God than be surrounded by people and be lost. You were never meant to be a puppet, controlled by strings of approval. You were designed with purpose, set apart, chosen not for ease, but for impact. Stop being addicted to affirmation. Your spirit doesn't need constant applause. It needs alignment. Alignment with God's will, with God's pace, with God's people. And let me remind you, your purpose doesn't need permission. When God gives you a word, you don't need a committee. You don't need a consensus. You need conviction. You don't need to be liked to be anointed. Favor from God will take you further than fame from people ever could. It's not about how many people know your name. It's about how deeply you know His. So today, choose obedience over acceptance. Choose calling over comfort. Choose divine purpose over public praise. Because when the applause fades and the crowd disperses, it will be God's voice that matters most. And when you stand before Him, He won't ask who liked you. You'll ask, did you follow me? Let your answer be yes. Let your life speak louder than opinions. Stop living for people's approval, start living for God's purpose. Every time you lower your standards to keep someone around, you're not just making a compromise, you're making a statement about how you see yourself. You are telling your soul, your spirit, and even the people around you that your worth is negotiable. And let me tell you something. When you start putting discounts on something that is priceless, you invite people who come to take, not to value. You were never meant to convince anyone of your worth. That's not your job. That's not your assignment. Your existence is already proof that you carry value. God didn't breathe into you just so you could spend your life auditioning for people's approval, trying to prove yourself to people who don't even know who they are is a losing game. When someone lacks identity, they will never be able to recognize yours. They will question your calling, minimize your gifts, and challenge your decisions. Not because you're wrong, but because your confidence exposes their confusion. You don't need to perform to be accepted. You don't need to bend over backward to be seen. The right people, the ones sent by purpose and not by pressure, will recognize your no as a sign of strength, not selfishness. They will not need a long explanation to honor your boundaries. They will not take your silence personally. Why? Because they are secure within themselves. And when two secure people meet, there is no competition, only alignment. You must understand that peace is a sacred thing. It is not just the absence of chaos, it is the presence of divine order. When God gives you peace, He gives you a weapon against the noise of this world. And when you allow the wrong people to disturb that peace in the name of friendliness or fake loyalty, you are handing your authority to someone who didn't earn it. You must protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. It's the space where your mind can breathe, where your soul can hear God, and where your vision becomes clear. That peace is your sanctuary. It's your power source. If you keep giving pieces of it away just to be liked, you will wake up empty in a room full of people and wonder why you're still lonely. Validation from others is temporary. One day they love you, the next day they leave. One day they cheer, the next day they criticize. But when your value is anchored in who God says you are, you don't rise and fall with the opinions of people. You remain steady, rooted, immovable. So rise above the noise, silence the need to explain, to prove, to please. You are not for everyone, and that's okay. You were designed for purpose, not popularity. So stand tall, speak truth, and stop trading your value for validation. You're already enough. You weren't born to babysit dysfunction. You were born to break cycles, shift generations, and walk in authority. So stop apologizing for your standards. Stop shrinking for comfort. Stop being too friendly. This is the season to protect your calling, preserve your energy, and walk boldly in purpose. You owe nobody access to what God made sacred. If this spoke to your spirit, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your destiny is too important to be diluted.